Hey everybody, welcome back to Great Northwest Weaponry. This is Thomas, and today we are taking a look at the original Carcano Model 1891 long rifle. This is an old one made at the Turney factory in 1896. This is one of very few true antique rifles that I own. For that matter, I believe this is only the third one that we've taken a look at on the channel so far. This is another example that I picked up from my friends at the war front. It's one I've been sitting on for a while and have been looking forward to doing the demo for, as we've talked about quite a few Carcanos up to this point. This probably more or less covers it up to this point. You may have noticed no ringing of steel. I am simply shooting at a broken tree stump down range, as there really is nowhere for me to hang my steel right now without getting out and getting a new hanger, of which I didn't know until I got here, because usually I have a big bolt stuck in a log. The bolt is gone, so I'll have to get a new one. But meanwhile, let's go ahead and go into the gun room and talk Carcano history.
I believe this is the fourth variant of Carcano that we've taken a look at this point on the channel. Funnily enough, it is the first variant of the Carcano. This is an original M91 or Modello 1891 Fusil Carcano. Fusil simply meaning rifle. The long rifles are actually quite a bit harder to find than some of the other models. I've found that the Moschetto Cavalry carbine, probably about the most common, with the M38 variant probably pulling in second place, followed by the one other variant that we haven't taken a look at, the Carcano TS, or Troupe Spéciale. Then there's also the rarer, more obscure Carcano Type I that we took a look at not too long ago. So we've covered a lot of Carcano ground on this channel, and as such, the history of this gun is going to be pretty quick and easy to sum up, as we're not going to be delving into other variants, considering most of those other variants we've already done a video on at this point. So I will be linking in this video description all of the previous videos that we've done on the topic of Carcano rifle variants. But long story short, in 1890, Salvatore Carcano, the chief technician at the Turin Army Arsenal in Italy, developed the Model 1891. It would start production in 1891 and continue until 1945. These were developed to replace the very aged Vetterli Vitali design. The Italians had been using that design for in excess of 20 years at that point. I think it was 1870. So basically, when he started development, it had been a full 20 years of the Vitali being in use, the Vetterli Vitali. And yeah, at that time, it was kind of a huge technology shift, because this was their first smokeless powder rifle. And at the time of its release, it was one of the most advanced rifles on the market, really. The Austro-Hungarian Empire had their Mannlicher design, of which is this is kind of a derivative of that mushmouth, but kind of in a watered down way, because the feeding system on this is actually copied off of the German Gewehr 88 more directly. The French were still using their Lebel Model 1886. And yeah, like I said, just at the time of its release, it was about the peak of weapons technology, especially in Europe, but really worldwide. It would outstay its welcome, in the opinion of many, as they kept making some variation of these all the way up until the very end of World War II. And by then, it was a very outdated design. They were the only country that I'm aware of that was still producing a Mannlicher feeding system style rifle. The French still, had their Berthier rifles and carbines, and did to a degree use them, but they weren't producing them anymore. They'd transitioned to the Mas 36. The Germans did away with the Gewehr 88 commission rifle about a decade after it was developed, they had, developed the Car 98, or the Cavalry 98 originally, and then led by World War II to the Car 98, of which, as soon as the Cavalry 98 was released, that was probably the most advanced rifle design in the world. And the Italians stuck with the same M91. And I've already kind of mentioned this, but the Italians simply knew this as Modello 91. There was no, Carcano Modello 91 or Carcano Model 1891 rifle or carbine. Rifle or carbine was just a distinction of, like, look at it. Is it a rifle? Yes. Cool. That's a rifle. Is it a carbine? Yes. Cool. That is now the carbine. They were all just the Model 1891. Carcano Model 1891 is more of a Western distinction, largely amongst collectors, to distinguish it from the Mosin Nagant Model 1891. But yeah, it's a cool rifle. It's definitely one that I'm happy to have in my collection. Definitely one of the oldest in my entire collection, as this example is dated 1896. I think I only have 2 rifles older than that. If even 2, I might only have 1 that's actually older than this. All total, numbers of Carcanos produced across all variants is somewhere between 2 and 3 million, and it seems like it's a wide discrepancy there, and I can't really find a more accurate number. It seems like 2,070 some odd thousand is the low end possible, and 3 million is the high end possible, but I can't really find sources that agree. And that's been a consistent thing with Carcanos that we've looked at in the past, such as with going back to the Type I Japanese Carcano. That particular model, production numbers are all over the place. I don't remember the exact low and high, but I know from the stated low number to the what appears to be the correct number based on serial number ranges, it could be, double the low number from the low number to high number. So I'm not saying that in a way that really makes sense, but just to condense that, finding exact numbers of Carcanos produced is a massive pain, and is something for somebody that has access to books that I do not. But these were originally, all the way up until 1938, all chambered in 6.5 by 51 millimeter. Again, until 1938, that did not change. And even after, from 1938 to 1945, a lot of them were, went right back to producing these in 6.5 Carcano. Again, they experimented with the 7.35 in 1938, and then in 1939, they were at war, so they kind of abandoned that. But yeah, it definitely makes me happy to have the original Carcano. This is, the World War I example, this one being a pre-World War I example by, nearly 20 years. And yeah, that more or less covers what we're going to talk about in the history on this thing. Again, we've gone over a lot of the other information about, everything after this model in other videos. So I definitely recommend you check those out. Meanwhile, let's really quickly transition to the tabletop, look at some markings and bolt extraction, and then take this thing back out to the range.
We're only really going to be taking a look at a couple of markings here. There are a number of them that I don't actually know what they mean, but on the flats around the barrel shank here, right in here, you've got a PO stamp on the right-hand side of the barrel, and that stamp appears again at the base of your bolt handle. I don't actually know what that means, so if you do know, I would be interested to hear. But on the other flats of the barrel, you've got your date, 1896 in this case, your manufacturer, this one being a Tierney, and then on the other side you got your serial number, and then another series of markings that are unknown to me. Again, there are just odd markings on these, and a lot of them are just going to be proof marks, various testing stamps, a lot of it kind of on the side of the
history that I'm not as aware of. The sight on these is very strange. So you've got a button on the side here. Your battle sight is at either 300 or 350 meters, if I'm not mistaken. But then this button, you depress it and you can fold this leaf back. Now your battle sight is sitting at, I think it starts at 600 meters and then works all the way up to 2,000. So it is, I mean, like, you know, at the 2,000 meters, you're sitting at a ridiculous incline with that sight. So typically I just use this with the bolt, or with the leaf folded down. The Cavalry Carbine has a similar configuration, though it is shorter range. I think it tops out at 1,500 meters. I'm not certain on that. I'll probably post the exact, but if memory serves, it's 1,500. Bolt removal is a piece of cake. On all Carcanos, it's going to be the same. You're going to open your bolt, pull it back, pull the trigger, remove. And then to put it back in, just line up your bolt, pull the trigger, and then slide it in. And as I'm sure we'll mention again when we're actually shooting this thing, you can pull the trigger and then close the bolt to drop your cocking piece. So yeah, pretty straightforward for this segment here. Let's go ahead and take this back out into the woods and shoot some more.
Loading the Carcano Model 1891 is going to be just like any other Mannlicher system rifle we've ever taken a look at. Got a end block clip. This one is a 6-rounder, and you just insert it into the magazine until fully seated. Once it is finished feeding, there's just a spring that moves up through the clip, and once it is finished, it should drop out of the bottom. Bolt on this is not the smoothest bolt in the world, but not terrible. I'm actually gonna, since I'm not really being able to work for accuracy as I'm just shooting a stump, I'm gonna kind of see how fast I can work the bolt this time. But your safety is this button right here. There's this little arm that you depress, rotate counterclockwise, and then let it fall back. And now it should be safe. Let's see if it works. Yep, we're good. Now it is set to fire. So 6 shots of 6.5 Carcano out of the Carcano M91 long rifle. Here we go. Not terrible. You actually can operate it pretty quickly. This, by the way, does safely depress the firing mechanism if you pull the trigger while closing the bolt. And our clip did indeed fall out. This is a older example of a Carcano clip. Generally speaking, the brass examples are going to be older than the iron examples. At least that's been my understanding. It's actually somewhat difficult to find very many particulars on that info. For me, it has been anyway. But yeah, Carcano Model 1891. I'm definitely going to have to get it out and test its accuracy sometime. As we looked at on the tabletop, the sights on this thing are goofy. They're much like any of the other Carcanos prior Model 1938. I think it's Carcano Model 1938 that was the upgraded form of this. I could be wrong on that. If I am, I'll post a correction. Always just so many dates rolling around in my head at any given time. But anyway, hope you all enjoyed the video. It's been Thomas with Great Northwest Weaponry, and we'll see you next time.